Let's give another big round of applause for the Emmanuel Gospel Choir. They definitely started this event on a high note. I'm Shatishri Ravishankar, your MC for this evening, and it is truly my pleasure to welcome you all here today. Tonight's State of the County event is a proud moment for all of us to celebrate each and every one who continuously play their part in making our community more progressive, sustainable, and vibrant. Today's event honors our diversity, our cultures, and our abilities to work together to better the lives of people living in Santa Clara County. And I am so proud to be a part of it. So is Jeremy Selwak, one of Santa Clara County's top 10 outstanding employees in 2019 for his work as an animal shelter supervisor at the Consumer and Environment Protection Agency. He's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Jeremy?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jeremy. It is now my pleasure to introduce Linda Doe. Linda is the owner of Blossom Nail Spa, and she worked with the county to launch a program that gave thousands of workers a non-toxic and healthy workplace. It started a movement throughout the state and the nation. Please join me in welcoming Linda Doe.
Good evening, Santa Clara County. Chúc mừng năm mới. Happy New Year. It is such an honor and so proud to be here today to be part of such a diverse, vibrant, and just wonderful community. As a woman, mother, wife, business owner, especially Vietnamese American woman, my nail salon, Blossom Nail Spa, has been distinguished as the first Santa Clara County healthy nail salon. Spearheaded by Supervisor Cindy Chavez, this award-winning program has helped thousands of nail workers and partnered with nail salons and nail technicians to create a safe and healthy environment for both customers and workers. I would not be here today if it was not for my parents, who are refugees that fled from Vietnam to America by boat, risking their lives for a better future. They came to Santa Clara County in 1982, part of a mass Vietnamese refugees settling in the county that welcomed and supported them with welcomed arms with the best of their abilities. With the support of the county's safety net and resettlement services, my mom worked at a farm picking fruits while my dad went to school. Together, both of them raised me and my two siblings. Starting a whole new life in an unknown country, learning a whole new language, dealing with cultural barriers, raising children to succeed, and securing a job are many challenges that immigrants face. At Blossom Nail Spa, most of our workers are young immigrant women. Being the first healthy nail salon, we have helped set standards for a safe and healthy environment, using state-of-the-art air ventilation, safety procedures and practices, and non-toxic products. Our workers' health is important, our consumers' health is important, and because of the Healthy Nail Salon program, it brings awareness and it educates all. I want to take this moment to acknowledge someone that saw the value of this program before anyone else did. My business partner, husband, father of my 3-year-old son, Dong Dao. He and I both understand that the health of women is crucial and the health of families and communities. Since the launch of Santa Clara County Healthy Nail Salon program, we have now over 100 certified nail salons. We are still striving to have more nail salons be part of such a great program, and I have no doubt that we will get and reach our goals, as we have led and set examples for new and upcoming salons. And I have also mentored my own employees to become one successful business owners one day. Thank you, Supervisor Cindy Chavez, the board, and all of the county department for creating a better future for a wonderful, diverse community. I look forward to working with all of you into continuing to empower our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. I'd now like to introduce a woman who doesn't ask permission to make change. She's the interim president of Emerge America, with the mission of recruiting and training women to run for office. Please welcome Amanda Renteria.
Sheree, thank you so much for introducing me. My husband and my dad and mom would love that introduction because I think as the daughter of immigrants, they've always taught me that you can do anything. So I know he's listening, hashtag girl dad, right? So it's really wonderful to be here, and I have to tell you, it's really, in some ways, this is coming home. I worked at the city hall here, and that was my first government job. And I actually I got a job in the United States Senate, and before I left, I emailed a bunch of elected officials, and I said, I'd just like advice before I go. And there was one person that emailed pretty much immediately back, and that was Cindy. And I will never forget, not only does that what leadership is all about, but that tells you something about a person. And so thank you for doing that then, and thank you for giving me the honor to be here with all of you today. Thank you. So, my name is Amanda Renteria, or para todos que hablan español, Amanda Renteria con una R. I thought I would start off, I was asked to speak about the 100th year anniversary, and as a former teacher, I thought I'd start off with a couple of facts for all of us. 1878 is the first time a country in this world had said women deserve the right to vote. That was America. 15 years later, it was New Zealand that actually gave women the right to vote. 27 years later, August 18th, 1920, is when it was ratified here in the States for women, the right to vote for 8 million women. And so I looked it up and I said, why would anyone not want women to vote? And so I looked at the themes, right? I looked at the themes, and there are 5. There are 5 that I came up with when I researched this. Number 1, women didn't want to vote. Number 2, the pamphlet said, women didn't have time to vote because they needed to tend to the home and children. Number 3, this was in quotes, women are extraordinarily impressionable. They're scared about what us crazy ladies might do. Number 4, women have husbands who speak for them. I know. I had to do this research, people. Number five, women just can't possibly understand politics. So, listen, I love centennial anniversaries because they give us a chance to look at how silly we were 100 years ago, right? But they also sort of give us a mirror to what does the next 100 years look like? And what are people saying about us now? And I got to tell you, I have a 7-year-old girl at home. And 3 years ago, she's playing card games, the war, with her brother. She looks at me and she says, Mama, why does the king always beat the queen? Especially when I shuffle the cards. Right? Second, a year ago, she wanted to join a Little League team. And she had 2 choices. She could be, it was a co-ed Little League team. She could be on the Cowboys or the Kings. She says, why can't it be the Cowgirls and the Queens? Right? And I know as she grows up and thinks about this even 10 years from now, she's going to say, how did we live in a country where women and men did the same kind of work but women paid less? How did we live in a country that women didn't have jurisdiction over their own bodies or actually laws and rules that had allowed us to protect ourselves from sexual harassment and abuse? And I know this lady's going to ask me this question, which is, Mom, why did it take so long to have a woman president and a woman vice president in this country? So here's the other thing. This is the other reason I love anniversaries like this, is because when we look back on history, we can also see the full scope of review. History can show us that we actually need to be better. Because here's the story. 100 years ago, we all celebrated that women, or we're going to celebrate that women got the right to vote. But it was only some women. It took 50 years before black and brown women got the right to vote. In fact, in D.C., when they were marching, black women weren't allowed to be in those marches. So it's important that as we look back, we recognize that there are opportunities to learn here. And so as I think about where we are today, I ask myself, so I can look at my daughter and say, no, but we have learned something, Mika. We have learned something in the last 100 years. And so I went back to that list, and I went, well, what have we learned? Women have proven we want to vote. 53% of women are registered voters. Oh, and by the way, when we actually vote, more women vote than men. And so we're 55% of voters in the 2018 election. And it seems to me that we obviously have had time to both care for the House and vote. And in fact, so much time that we also have run for office. And so I want to remind us what the last couple of years have looked like for women. In 2016, for the first time in our country's history, a woman got 3 million more votes than a man. In 2017, women led the largest protest march in the history of this country that actually extended around the world. The list is long in 2018. In 2018, women were the tipping point in 7 state chambers to change the leadership. The women were a majority of the seats won to flip the powerful House of Representatives. And for the first time in our country's history, the state of Nevada became a majority female state legislature. So we've learned how to vote and run. We've also learned a little bit more from history. We don't do this divided. It's been women who have ushered in a whole new set of perspectives and a whole new set of voices. And just to take a step back over the last 2 years, The first two Latinas in Texas were elected to Congress. The first AAPI woman in Virginia was elected to the state legislature. The first trans woman was elected to a United States state legislature. Here, closer to home, the mayor of San Francisco became the first black woman mayor of San Francisco. The first two Native Americans to ever be elected to Congress. And of course, right here, in a decade, a woman president of this board. So I'll leave you with this, because obviously it seems that women can now speak for themselves. Women can also speak for their households and their own unique communities. But I'll give the anti-suffrage movement this one thing they might have been right about. When they said women couldn't possibly understand politics, they forgot something. Women couldn't possibly understand those politics. And you know what? Over the last 95 years, we stopped caring whether we understood. And over the last 4 years, women have decided we're actually just going to redefine politics, right? And we're going to do it collectively, multi-generationally, intersectionally. We're going to do it with our allies, with our #GirlsDad, because it means something for this country to come together. It means something when women and all of us say, if we open the door a little bit wider, that's good for everybody. And so it's a real honor to be here on the brink of 2020, because I do believe that this next 100 years isn't actually about women leading women, but this next 100 years is about women leading our country. So thank you so much for having me here. Cindy, thank you so much.
Thank you, Amanda. Now, I think it's only appropriate for the dynamic to introduce the dynamic. Please welcome Nicole Taylor, the president and CEO of the Silicon Valley Community Foundation, to introduce Supervisor Cindy Chavez.
Thank you, Shri. You've been fantastic as our MC. Can we give Shri a hand? And good evening, Santa Clara County. It's an honor to be standing here before you and to introduce a dear friend and colleague, Cindy Chavez. When she called me to ask me to do this, I couldn't believe it, and thank you for this honor. Yes, it's been a decade since a woman's been at this helm. I think that's too long, and I think we're about to see some changes, right? Yeah. Okay. Just making sure. Supervisor Chavez is one of the first Santa Clara leaders who welcomed me back to the Bay Area and to this region just over a year ago when I started at the helm of the Community Foundation. And I will always remember feeling grateful for her graciousness and for her acute understanding of what it means to be a woman in leadership, to be a woman of color in leadership, in a region, in a valley, where the number of women leaders, the number of women in executive positions still lags far behind the number of men in executive leadership. I've heard people call her a force of nature, a visionary, and a prolific policymaker. And for me, she is all of that. Supervisor Chavez is someone you want in your corner because her support means absolutely great outcomes. She produces and delivers on so much. The Community Foundation worked closely with her on Measure A, a $950 million bond that will provide more affordable housing for the county's most vulnerable populations. Thank you. She led the county's development of the nation's third LGBTQ-focused homeless shelter. Thank you. She enacted policies for wage equality against wage theft in Silicon Valley. She increased funding for intimate partner violence services, including education, mental health, housing, childcare, and employment, by an unprecedented 400%. It's incredible. She led approval for bail reform for low-level nonviolent offenders, which reduced the number of people in jail, which also prompted California legislation to take and the legislature to take similar action in 2018. So thanks for that. She is committed to giving back. She is committed to supporting women leaders. There's a number of us in the audience that she gets together regularly just to support each other and have each other's back. It means a lot. She has organized and secured funding for the 100th anniversary of women's suffrage. And this effort is going to be used to increase voter registration and census participation in what's probably going to be the most important election of our lifetimes. So thank you. She's a tireless advocate for immigrants, young children, mentally ill, and for anyone who is afraid that their voice is not going to be heard. Supervisor Chavez is your ally. She is your voice. She's committed to our community's greater good and will fight relentlessly for those most left behind in our communities. And it's with incredible pride that I welcome the President of the Board of Supervisors, Cindy Chavez.
So much. I'm overwhelmed, and I'm trying not to look at certain people here so I don't just burst into tears. But I am really, really grateful for so many of you joining me tonight. Let me thank, first of all the volunteers that are both in this room, out in the hallway, at the Isaac Newton Center. Let's give them a huge round of applause. They made tonight so amazing. And also, I just want to thank all of the staff that's been helping us, and I want to give a special thank you to Beth. I don't know where she is in the building, but can you just give her a big round of applause and say thank you? Thinking about tonight, like who we chose to participate, took a lot of thought. And I wanted to say very much that Shree and Jeremy, Linda, Amanda, and Nicole, we chose them for very, very special reasons. Shree gives me great confidence in the future. Doesn't she give you great confidence in the future? Jeremy beautifully reflects the heart and the soul of the people who choose to work for Santa Clara County, all 22,000 of them. Give him a huge round of applause. I so appreciate Linda and her story and her family's story and that beautiful, beautiful little human being who just fell asleep, so shh. Because really, Linda demonstrated that business and the county and our communities can work beautifully together and have multiple outcomes. Good business and what's good for people, both her employees and her customers. So thank you, Linda. And of course, happy Year of the Mouse as well. And Amanda, you know, I've known Amanda for a long time, and I just want you to know you could feel the presence that Amanda brings to the world, that force. What she is doing is lifting the voices of women across this country. Let us thank her for that leadership. And for those of you who know Nicole, what you know about her is that the Silicon Valley Community Foundation, which is just such an important partner for us, required open-minded, progressive, thoughtful, fierce leadership. And you know we got that in her. Now, I especially want to give a thanks to two people. One is my amazing husband, Mike. My mom still reminds me that I made out in that deal. So, and it's true. He's just a wonderful, wonderful man, husband, friend. All of those good things. And also, I wanted to say thank you to people who aren't here today, who are watching this online. And one of those is our son, Brennan, who I know, yeah, Gopi, who I know is watching this. And I'm going to remind him to, I don't know where our cameras are here, do your homework. Mama's watching you. And I also want to say, for those of you who are in the Isaac Newton Center auditorium, thank you. We know you're here, and we're paying attention to you too. And for those of you down in the cafeteria, you lucked out, you got the cookie bar. Now, as I was thinking about today and the state of the county, I really wanted to think about the county in its biggest terms. And so let's talk about what we know about our community. We know we're one of the most well-educated communities in the nation. 76% of all of the people who live in Silicon Valley have gone to some level of college. 47% of all patents in the state of California come from this region. You know our high-tech companies and our driving industries employ thousands of our residents, as do our small business community. And we live in one of the most diverse places in the world. We are a place of great beauty and great wealth. And yet, when we look at our valley, what else do we see? We have the largest income gap in the state of California here in our valley. The largest income gap. We have the fourth highest homeless or houseless population in the nation here in our valley. We have 31% more people are homeless this year than they were last year. And 1 in 5 of our homeless community at some point were in the foster care system. And a community that has become unaffordable for low-wage or moderate workers. In order to afford a rent here, you need to make an average of $108,000 a year to afford a basic apartment. Our long commutes here are getting longer. We have 85,000 people in our community who are called mega commuters because they drive over 90 minutes each way to get to and from work. And the truth is that income inequality is a primary, what? Is there a timer? Not in my house, not tonight. Not tonight. But the truth is that income inequality is driving a humanitarian crisis. It's driving our housing crisis. It's driving homelessness. It is perpetuating the ever-expanding opportunity gap for families and children in our community. Our community dropout rate is higher than the state's, with losing over 1,900 students last year in our high schools. And the truth is that hate and gender-based bias drive violence nationally. We've seen it in our own community with the shootings in Gilroy and the relentless onslaught of violence against people who are intimate partners or people who are different. If you're trans, if you're gay, if you're different. The truth is, just like everyone else who shares our planet, we face an emergency that is inescapable from any of us, and that is climate change. It's threatening our most important industrial lands with sea level rise, and we see wildfires up and down this state. The convergence of income inequality, violence, and climate change is potentially cataclysmic for Silicon Valley and this planet. And here in this extraordinary valley, we seek to do what others think is impossible. Or it's not their job, or it's just too hard. You are the reason that I have hope. Together, the people in this room and the other rooms and on this dais, we have done good things. In fact, we've even done great things. Look around the room you're in. Look at the people who are in your company. They are community volunteers who clean up their neighborhoods. nonprofit leaders who will not rest till we know what their clients need. So I saw you all back there. Business leaders who choose to give back to this community, labor leaders and activists who are fighting to preserve the rights and wages for union members and non-union members alike. Teachers who never give up on a single child. Nurses who work for the county because they believe everybody deserves excellent care, even though they could work in places that are easier. Researchers who seek solutions to our greatest challenges. Innovators, counselors, peer mentors, foster parents, in-home support care workers, students, climate activists, child care workers, faith leaders, and public servants. Each of you in this room is a champion for others. And you don't have to move the crying babies. That just reminds me of church. You let him walk around. You let him be here. So here we are, all of us, in the cradle of innovation, hungry for justice, and we each ambitious for change. So now it's time we get to work. If there's a central theme to my comments tonight, it's a call to action. That we act while we are making plans, that we pay attention to individual struggles while we implement broad policies. What I mean is that we want to be able to see the forest and the trees, and that we succeed at both the micro and macro level. This approach recognizes what everyone in this room knows, particularly the moms, and that is that life keeps happening while you're planning for it. It just does. What I'm asking of all of us is to be incredibly audacious. And I know this is daunting, but we don't have a choice. We have to succeed. And we have to succeed because simply the stakes are too high for all of us, for our children, for our grandchildren, that I do not have. Especially for those in our community who suffer in silence, who don't know how to get the help they need, and who we haven't reached yet. This is the challenge that faces our county and my incredible colleagues on the Board of Supervisors. Now, I have told my colleagues that I intend to serve only 1 year as board president. The reason I've done that is that it's fitting that a woman lead the board on the 100th anniversary year of a woman's right to vote. And I am so proud of the Women's Equality Leadership Council that are behind me. If I could ask them just to stand for a moment. And what you'll see... And those in the audience, and we have them all over, and you'll see that they are wearing the color white because it's the color of suffrage. The reason we have the color of yellow is that is men wore yellow roses to demonstrate their support for women who were looking for the suffrage vote, and I'm certain you're going to see yellow ties with all these men in this year. Now, let me just say, the reason this group of women is so important, they had an opportunity to decide what they wanted to do this year, and they made two choices. They're going to make sure every person in our community is counted for the census, and that everyone who wants to register to vote registers to vote. Now, this is an important history lesson, and I am so grateful that Amanda gave it just as beautifully as she did. What we know is that this is our opportunity to lift up every voice. And as we do that, we must listen to those with lived experience. It was painful to hear the stories of those who've survived sexual assault. Yet this has led to important achievements in the county. In February 2018, we had a backlog of 265 untested rape kits in our crime lab. We didn't have the policy nor the funding to make sure all these kits would be processed quickly. But DA Rosen stepped up and partnered with me and my colleagues on the board, and my colleagues provided the funding to clear that backlog and put dedicated people in the crime lab to process rape kits within 30 days. Now, just to let you know, the state request is to do it with less than 100 days. Our goal was to do it less than 30 days. But in 2019, the district attorney's office succeeded, and the average rape kit was processed within 14 days. Now, I want you to understand this. The reason I am so proud of this team, and I apologize, this subject makes me mad, so mad, but the reason I'm so proud of this team, and I'm really grateful, to D.A. Rosen and his team at the Crime Lab, and the cooperation from all of our public safety agencies. But the reason this is so profound is that we have set a new national standard. And with that new national standard and raising our voices in one county, it allows us to raise our voices nationwide. So this is something that we're going to be asking all of our counties in the state of California and in the nation to follow suit. Now, we need to continue the charge. We've got to keep moving. We know that the challenge is deeply rooted in equities and social norms that perpetuate the idea of control and power over women and reinforce this persistence of gender-based violence. That means that we need to increase awareness of the scope of the problem and the impact and strengthen our prevention efforts. Individuals need to be empowered to choose their relationships and decide when they leave. Most importantly, we can't look at victims to solve this by themselves. We have to focus as much energy and resources on teaching people not to hit, not to rape, and not to assault other human beings, as we do telling women to be careful. My colleagues and I know, will continue to put more resources into prevention, and this has to start at an early age in every school. And there's more work to be done. In 2017, our 5 domestic violence agencies received over 20,000 hotline calls, 20,000. And 1 in 4 women in our community will be a victim of intimate partner violence in their lifetime, 1 in 4. And the most lethal threat to women and children is actually something that, again, we're partnering with the DA's office to address and our police agencies. The criminal courts issue about 3,000 domestic violence protective orders with gun prohibitions. And the family court issues about 1,600 more. And currently, we do not have a reliable and effective mechanism to enforce those orders and make sure that those guns are relinquished. In partnership with the District Attorney's Office, the Sheriff, San Jose PD, and other police agencies, I will be asking my colleagues to fully fund and staff an enforcement team that can get all gun prohibitions, not just those, but all gun prohibitions in our county followed up on and get those guns where they belong, away from people who will hurt others. This will address inequity and safety, and we're going to do a lot more. But let's talk about our inequity in housing. In the past 3 years, we have housed 3,000 homeless people, That's amazing. And I just want to thank all those people who worked on this. And we've prevented homelessness for 2,000 more. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, why did homelessness increase last year? The answer is simple and complicated, and that is that more and more working people with jobs, lost their housing. Each county supervisor has windows that look out onto the East Foothills, and there's a school that all of our offices can see. Last year, they lost 90 kids in 1 year because their families couldn't afford to live in modest downtown San Jose. No community can be sustained if there's no room for people who are grocery clerks, janitors, cooks, childcare providers, teachers, administrators, professors, construction workers, nonprofit workers, administrators. No community can be sustained if we are in our cars. You can't lead a scout troop from a car. You can't coach a kid's game from a car. You can't volunteer from a car. Well, a little bit of that you can, but it's not effective. The reality is that 90-minute commutes robs our families and our communities of some of our most valuable resources, all of you. This level of income inequality is just not sustainable. It's choking our growth, threatening our potential, and driving a humanitarian crisis. But here's our big advantage. We've had some success, and now we have to build upon it. Mike Wasserman was thoughtful enough to ask a very simple question. What does it cost for someone to be homeless? What would it cost if we could house them? That was the basis for our Housing First policy and our success in keeping 3,000 folks in stable permanent housing at a 93% rate. 93%. I want to say a very special thank you to Mike. Well done. And Dave Cortese brought another challenge to the county. He said, imagine if the county played a role in addressing housing and homelessness in particular. He established the Housing Task Force that led the county to put Measure A on the ballot. We're ahead of schedule with our Measure A housing bond for the homeless, almost halfway to building the 4,000 new homes we told the community we would build. We need to double down on Measure A. And what that means is we're not going to do this by ourselves. We're going to do it in partnership. And I want all the members of city councils, if you could just stand for a minute, we're going to give you applause because I know you were fighting for this housing. If you're a city council member in here, get up, let us thank you. Let us thank you for your work. We are looking, and I just want you to think about this for a moment. Of all the affordable housing built last year, of the affordable housing, this isn't all housing, just of the affordable housing, only 12% of affordable housing in California was focused on people with the lowest income. 12%. That's not all 12% of all new housing. That's just affordable housing. If every one of the 15 cities in this county were able to take what's already in their general plans, we would get close to 7,000 ELI housing units. If we continue to partner with agencies like VTA, and Nuria, I'm so glad you're here, VTA and the community colleges and San Jose State, we can get this done. And I don't mean to put pressure on my colleagues or on our staff. You know I do mean to do it. So let me not be insincere there. My objective is to get 1,000 new Measure A homes approved in this calendar year. 1,000. And I want to say the very good news is that you've got a whole 11 months. That's awesome. Now, we're also looking to create housing for survivors of domestic violence and human trafficking. And I want to just acknowledge that two of my colleagues, Mike Wasserman and Joe Simidian, really asked us to think outside of just the Measure A box. And so as new dollars become available, they looked for housing for those who were developmentally delayed, who needed more support in their housing. And I think while I was nervous about it because I was worried about the impact to Measure A, what I realized is we get new resources, we really ought to be thinking about specialty housing for those that don't fit into Measure A, and we're going to take a look at that as we look at new resources. Actually, just yesterday, Dave decided to do another task force focused on homelessness, and you'll hear more about that. But essentially what we're saying is this is where we go to the forest and the trees, that while we're building this permanent housing, we're going to be building some shelters too, so people don't have to suffer quite so long as they wait for their housing. Years ago, when I served on the San Jose City Council, and as a council member and as a board member, you get the opportunity to meet the most amazing people. And I met this family that was pretty low income themselves, but they opened up a food pantry on their own for their neighbors. Think about the generosity that takes. And because of, life interrupting life, one person suffered a job loss, another member of the family passed away. And one of the couple became homeless. And I was at a grand opening for a housing unit, and I saw him, and I went to give him a hug and congratulate him because he had just been given one of the new permanent supportive housing units. And what he said that was so powerful is, I thought he was going to just hug me and be excited, and instead he leaned into me and he said, "It's really rough out there." And he repeated it, "It's really rough out there, not just for me, but for the people I left." So what he said was, do more and do it faster. And so what I'm saying to all of you is, we are going to do more and we are going to do it faster. Now, thanks to the leadership of people who came long before me on the Board of Supervisors, we've been at the forefront of addressing mental health services. And yet we know right now our needs feel even greater, don't they, in our community? And when any person experiences depression, emotional distress, or periods of confusion, we hide it. And we actually teach people to hide it. We deny the fear because we are so fearful of the stigma and discrimination that individuals with mental health issues face. And often people are forced to seek treatment on their own and self-medicating with alcohol or drugs. And they're left, and all of us are left, with a feeling of hopelessness. But I want to just point to what the board and the county has already done together. The Behavioral Health Department prioritized the prevention of suicide. And now, because of their leadership and their work, and frankly, grassroots leadership in our community, Santa Clara County reports the lowest suicide rate in California. Now, one suicide is too many, but our county has literally saved lives through our suicide prevention strategies and actions. Now, we know we need to continue to fill the gaps in mental health needs, including a new psychiatric facility on our VMC campus with the stalwart leadership of Joe Simidian. Thank you, Joe. We want to help individuals pursue and enjoy recovery from mental illness in their lives with further engagement with folks on the street. The mental health advocates have told me to get doing that. We will. Expanded services for detoxification and recovery from drugs and alcohol. Reducing wait times for services for both adults and youth, and making sure that we don't lose people through the cracks. A continued investment in our partnership with public safety, and a new working group to address methamphetamines. Scott, that's because of you. And we will go beyond no wrong door. Our objective here is to knock down the walls between services and those who need them. It's got to be easy to get services, as easy as it is to do anything else in our communities. I think the result of this is we're going to live in a community that has genuine hope. Because we know that with the support and encouragement of our amazing staff, peer volunteers, family members, and our incredibly skilled activists and leaders in both behavioral health and in drug and alcohol professionals are going to help us lead the way. So I want to thank all of them. Let's give them a round of applause for all the work they do. Now, as we turn to children, who I think the income inequality hits them the hardest, it is most cruel on the children in our community. And that inequality creates an opportunity gap that can make a kid who lives on the east side with Apple on the west side, that Apple might as well be on the moon in terms of them getting a job there. And we are going to do something about that. Too many children don't have access to child care and quality childcare and quality preschool. And too many children and young adults struggle with mental health issues. Too many children miss school because they're taking care of younger siblings, working, or battling health issues. And too many children spend far too little time with their parents who are working 2 or 3 jobs just to make the rent. With School Link services championed by Dave Cortese, we provided mental health services at school. And we know we have to continue to collaborate with the amazing partners that we have at our schools. And for those of you who are on school boards, if you could stand a minute, let us just give you a big applause. You do amazing work. Thank you. This past year, under the leadership of Susan Ellenberg, the county put forward the first children's budget, identifying over $170 million we dedicate to services and programming for children. I want to thank Susan for bringing that lens to the board. And we have intervened to help the most vulnerable kids, transitional age foster youth, human trafficking victims, children in our dependency system who are our very own kids. Every one of these kids belongs to all of us, and we've got to do better for them. Our entire board has been supportive of protecting families and children, no matter their immigration status in our community, and we will continue to do that. Now, with all the work we've done, we have much to do. Susan and I will be bringing forward a recommendation to create an Office of Children's Policy and Advocacy. Now, here at the county, we've established child care pilots, and I'm so excited to see Supervisor Yeager here, as this was one of his dreams as well. So thank you, Ken. And as resources become available, Dave and I will be asking my colleagues to dramatically expand this work, starting with the highest needs families throughout the county and leveraging state and federal dollars. We will work to make sure that every child in this county has access to quality child care and early learning opportunities with well-trained and fairly paid teachers and teachers' aides. Now, I will be asking my colleagues to support a program that allows us to provide children with mental health screenings based at school sites, and that way we can have quick intervention. Now, we're just getting started in closing the opportunity gap, but working with our amazing staff, our cities, our nonprofit partners, parents, students, and schools, we aspire to be a community that gives every child, every single child, the dream we envision for them when they first enter the world. That is what will be different here. Now, if you're like me, you're worried about the future of our valley and the planet. And I know it's getting hot in here, but the whole planet's hot, so don't feel, not just us. Every day there's more bad news. And we've seen the impacts of climate change right here in Santa Clara County with droughts, sea level rise, and massive wildfires. Our board has recognized that climate change is real, and we're working to do something about it. Dave asked us to declare a climate emergency, and that passed unanimously on our board, and we're finishing up a sustainability master plan. And this will require every department in the county to think about how we deal with sustainability. Now, we've done a lot already. We've made the case for diesel-free by 33, I could never say that right, by 33, to receive 100% of our energy from clean sources, to divert 100% of the county's waste from landfills, and to convert this waste into energy. And on top of my work for the county, I also serve on a bunch of regional boards that are trying to do something about this as well. But I know this isn't enough, and I know there's more we can do. And I'm committed to really working with our partners at VTA, Caltrain, and the Air Quality Board to make sure we make significant changes on this issue here in our community. As we bring more density to our transit corridors, we must be mindful to prevent another environmental catastrophe, the loss of our precious agricultural land. And this is an urgent challenge. Mike and Dave have already prioritized the preservation of our agricultural land, and we must find reliable funding sources to save our farmland. We've got to lead the efforts to address changes in our food system too. We've got to address waste, the need in our community for those who are going hungry, and recognize it's a national security issue. And we need to partner with our cities, the Water District, I'm so glad to see you here, and our Open Space Authority to coordinate these efforts. We must consider new investments and new strategies to expand fire protection. The impacts of wildfires are immense, and we must be ready both to prevent fires and be ready to fight them when they come. We, our county, must become a climate refuge where taking the responsible action and reversing climate change are within our control. I know these things seem big, but I know we can do it. This county is a county of amazing people, big and small, strong and weak, old and young, with different abilities, talents, and a lot of attitude. And I mean that in the best way. When I look at what we've accomplished together, I am truly filled with optimism. We rarely ask if a problem can be solved. We usually just assume it can be. Tonight, I have explained that I intend to lead us in tackling problems at a micro and macro level. I believe we can save the forest and the trees, and we can do it at the same time, like all good mothers can. Together, we are strong, smart, we are audacious. We're willing to work together. And I used to have this saying where I would say to people, and you've seen, if I've written you a note, you'll see me say, P.S., have fun changing the world. But we don't have the option of changing it anymore. We have to save it. So the state of our county is bold. So I've adopted some wisdom from Bill Nye, the science guy. I love that guy. Honey, I'm sorry, I have a crush. Love that guy. Speaking as a scientist and an environmentalist, here's what he says. You know we can't do things one at a time. There are way too many problems, and they all need to be solved now. We have to do everything. We have to do everything. And we have to do it all at once. So that's my approach to climate change, economic challenge, and human suffering. We will and we must do everything all at once. Thank you very much for being here. I look forward to working with you.